Hitting revenue targets is hard and requires constant hustle. Last quarter's success is already forgotten. Learn the mindset and tactics of today's most successful revenue producers in B2B marketing and sales. We call this the revenue hustle. I'm your host, Tom Hessen, navigating you on this journey. Today's show is sponsored by 9 Lenses, an interactive assessment platform that enables you to add instant value to your buyers and allows your sales team to tailor business conversations focused on the pain points each and every time. Check them out at 9lenses.com.
All right, this is your host, Tom Hessen, with our next episode of the Revenue Hustle. So excited to invite Aakash Shirodkar to the podcast. Aakash, welcome to the Revenue Hustle.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited about this conversation. So Aakash, you are the practice leader for data and AI at Hexaware, overseeing all countries outside of the US. Tell us a little bit about your role.
Well, I'm excited to announce that on December 11th, I joined the movement to build a great Hexaware. So I've been tasked to lead the data and AI practice for the rest of the world. This means all geographies outside of North America. I'm thrilled to be part of this team. And yeah, as the data and AI leader for ROW, I serve as a strategic growth leader responsible for authoring and charting sales growth, as well as driving operational leadership for the data and AI portfolio across the geography.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure you're a busy guy with all the data and analytics conversations happening. So excited to dig into that a little bit, but you know how we do this on the Revenue Hustle. We do revenue rules. So go ahead and give us your first revenue rule.
Well, my first revenue rule is that value creation is king, not the customer. And maybe I can unpack that a little bit. So contrary to popular belief that customer is king, I would argue that the requirement or value creation itself for the organization is king. So by placing the requirement at the center and by aligning everything around it, even the customer becomes a stakeholder to the requirement. Now think about that a little bit, right? The questions that need to be answered are, need to begin from inward to outward, right? What is your requirement? What is the value that you need to create? Do you need to optimize costs? Do you need to maximize revenues, or do you need to improve efficiencies in your processes? So with that being said, value creation needs to be the center of everything, and all of us, including the customer, become stakeholders to that.
That's very counterintuitive, because you're right. I mean, we always think about the customer being right? Customer's king, right? We're all working at our customers' request, and so the idea that we are peers with our customers and all trying to seek the value that they aspire to makes us partners in that journey, which I think is really interesting. Instead of just assuming the customer's right, you're telling us the value that they aspire to is what we're all working together, right? Did I catch that right?
Yeah. So see, a lot of times, and especially because I work with data and AI, customers really do not know what end looks like. They have a version of what end looks like, but they don't either know precisely what it is, or in some cases they may know precisely what it is, but they don't know how to get the journey to get there. Which is why they say, hey, this can be done in 2 months, whereas it could be a 6 months job, or they don't know the components that need to come together to get there. So having said that, getting the requirements of the value creation right is I think the biggest step towards success, or any success, or when we partner with our clients. And that's something that we call value-led consultative selling, right? So imagine a dartboard. And if you look at a dartboard, right at the center is the requirements, is the value that the organization requires. And then you have those, pizza type pies in the middle. Right. All of those are stakeholders. So you have customer as one of them. You have us as, SI partners as one of them. You have the hyperscaler partner as one of them. You have the business function to which we are catering to as one of them. You have some of the internal services, their internal IT, cloud, whatever, infrastructure, all of that as one of them. All of these are stakeholders to the value that needs to be created. And that, I feel, is central to how we should talk or engage with customers. And that has led us to, a lot of success, not only in my career, but, also for my company.
So how did you, I mean, I think this is interesting because you're right. A lot of times people put the customer at the center, not as a pie, as a stakeholder in the value. So how did you come to this? Like, how did you start to think about, the goal, the value creation kind of being at the center? Like, where did that originate from? How did you think about that?
So um, the genesis of most good things is failure.
Sure
Yeah.
is.
So couple of things. So failure in terms of, let's say, not understand a failure in terms of, let's say, not understanding the requirements, right? Failure in terms of not looking at which metrics or levers we are targeting. And failure in terms of not sizing the opportunity in terms of effort, right? So all of these failures, came, and when hindsight is always 2020, they say, right? But in that 2020, when you're having that 2020 vision, you need to see, okay, fine, what are the failure points that are going wrong? And that made me realize this concept of, the requirements being king or the value being king. And as a method, then what we developed is to have a value-led consultative selling. So just imagine, I'll give you an example. So let's imagine insurance company. Let's imagine we're working for the claims. Now, when we talk to them and they say, hey, we want to infuse AI within our claims process. All right, that's fine. Where do you want to do this? So do you want to do it for operationally? Do you want it to do it financially? Do you want to do it for customer? So let's say they want to do it operationally. So then the next question is, hey, do you want to improve your efficiency? Do you want to improve your process times? Or do you want to improve your cost drivers? Right? So these are values that these are questions that we want to ask. And if you want to improve efficiency, let's say in our analogy that we're talking about, it's a different proposition that we need to go for. If you're looking at financial metrics and looking at claims handling expenses to be reduced, then that's a different value that we're going for. So just when when a customer says, hey, we want to infuse AI in our claims process, and then we show them slides and we kill them death by slides, they say, right? We kill them saying that we can do A, B, C, we can do all of these things. So the conversation goes haywire, right? Whereas if you lead by value to say that, okay, fine, which is your biggest pain point within claims, right? Is it operations? Is it finance? Is it customer? And he says, okay, fine, it's operations. I would like to reduce my cost drivers and leakage as far as claims are concerned. Is it fair enough? Now, within your cost driver and leakage, then that is where you hone in to say that, okay, which one of the processes would you like to pick up for infusing AI? And with that, you're on a solid ground. The customer knows that he's not trying to use Harry Potter's wand and, change his claims process completely. He knows that he's targeting a lever, and that lever then will have an infused AI and will have a different day in a life for his existing practitioners who are working on that processes, right? So I think using this value-led approach right from the start, and then once we know that, okay, for this lever we have a lot of experience, and basis that we can size the effort properly, we can put in the right talent, and therefore then deliver deliver it right for the project. And ultimately, what is the customer looking for? What is the organization looking for? They're looking for value. They're looking for the newspaper headline. They want to say that, X insurance company brought down costs by 26% using AI to, decrease the cost levers and revenue leakage. So that's the newspaper headline we want to write. And that's only done when you start with value.
Well, I think what jumps out to me when you're talking about that is because sometimes customers do know what they want and they may be adamant about that, but making the value, like those are the facts. Like the value is to me more clear, but the customer it gives them room to learn and change and modify. And because of the education of the value-led consultative selling approach, we're trying to shape the value as partners rather than just take what the customer gives us and try to go do that, right? So like if the customer just says, hey, here's what I want, and you go and say, I can give you what you want, they may be wrong. right? The value, what they're asking for may not really align to the value that they perceive or desire, but by making them a partner and objectively working on defining the value, then it gives you and them the opportunity to kind of mold and shape and change or learn as you're trying to define the value, right? Rather than just saying the customer's right, I got to go do what they ask them to do, right?
Yeah, that's right. I can articulate the what you mentioned in a day in our day in a life from our perspective, right? So customers, let's say, can come to us as an example and say, I have a data quality problem. Can you solve that for me? Now, for us, it's a very straightforward response to say that yes, data quality can be solved doing A, B, C. But then, if you want to go through the value route and say that, okay, fine, you have a data quality problem. How is that impacting you today? And if he comes back and says, you know what, I'm not able to bill my customers property because I don't have quality data coming through, and my unbilled is the reason where I cannot get revenue at the right time, and I have a lot of capex issues over there. So now that completely redefines the way we need to approach the problem, because we could start with a small POC, taking that unbilled data, proving data quality, and then saying, okay, fine, this is the proof of the pudding, and now we can apply this for different kinds of data across your organizational ecosystem. So we start small, prove value, and then deliver the bigger bang for the buck over a period of time, rather than just saying to them, okay, data quality, this is $1 million, this is what you need to spend, and then the customer saying why, right? So completely different approaches. Taking a leaf from how you articulated it, and the way we then approach the same thing for these simplistic problems that you feel are so easy to solve, but when you take them through a value, it completely changes the dynamics between the collaboration that the customer sees us as a trusted partner.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for us to, as sellers, right, to lose sight of the value, and the customer comes, we get excited, they're giving us an opportunity to talk to them about their pain points. We may do discovery and ask some questions around their data and your problem, like the data quality. Well, why do you have data quality problems? But not step back and look at the broader value implications, right? We just say, great, they came to us, let's go solve their problem, and let's just go. So why were you having the failures? Were you not losing were you losing the opportunities? Like, were you like customer friction? Like, so you said, like, you learned this through failures. So what were those sorts of failures that you saw? Like, you didn't win the deal, the customer was, I don't know, didn't like your approach, or what was it that you think lend itself to the failure by not doing what you're saying? I'm kind of curious if you thoughts on that.
Yeah. So let me start by saying that delivery is the currency for sales. Now, having said that, if we need to be effective in landing and expanding, so let's say you have different kinds of accounts. There are certain accounts you want to land as new logos. Once you've landed those new logos, you probably want to expand those new logos. Right. And landing and delivery is the currency of sales. So I'm going back to that statement. Now, if you want to land and expand, your delivery needs to be spot on. Your ability for future expansion depends on how you deliver today. Now, what we saw is that there was a little bit of friction to say that people, clients were completely not open. And again, this is nothing to do with my, present organization, because I just joined them, but I'm talking more from an experiential perspective, right? Having worked over 20 years, in similar organizations and so on and so forth. So asking the delivery team, say, where's the friction coming from? Why is there a little bit of friction? Why are they not so open to other potential collaborations, right? So having said that, we've seen that we were more of, let's say, order takers rather than value-led propositions, right? So when you want to completely pivot your perception with the customer, that's when we understood that we need to go to a value-led approach. And essentially what we think is, going back again to the first statement I made, delivery is the currency of sales. So if you want additional sales, especially in your existing customers, I think, what we thought is value-led is the way to go. What we did was we elevated the team's ability through these value-led solutions We coached them. Training was provided, or a certain set of leaders took this as a way of show and tell, and there was a 20% increase in the average deal size, and there was a 15% increase in the win rates. When we started all of these kind of approaches. So that was probably the genesis of how this started.
No, that's great. No, I think it's sounds so simple, right? When you talk about it that way, and you obviously have done this very naturally, and you've learned this, so it comes off very naturally. What are some of the challenges that you've seen, like when you train your teams, right, to kind of think this way? Did it come natural to them? Did it take time and practice? Like, what was your sounds like you did get some results, which is great, but like, what was some of the experiences as you've kind of transitioned the team to think about this value-led approach?
Yeah. So again, it didn't come naturally to most of them, and even for me, right, so to speak. But I think most leaders are brought in to effect some cultural change, without which I think organizations would just run in the same way that they would run before. Because all organizations think that they're doing a very good job at it. I'll just give you a generic example. A Nike would say they're doing very well, an Adidas would say they're doing very well, and a Puma would also say, or a New Balance would say they're all doing very well in certain shapes and forms, right? So it's generic with any organization. The biggest change, the most difficult, challenging change that you can impact is cultural change. And I think I said this earlier. I said that the perception from the clients were that we were order takers. We execute very well. We understand and we execute very well, but we don't understand actually what we are executing. This was also told to us by one or two stakeholders, and I took that in, and I took it to heart, so to speak. And that's when I started myself understanding, hey, what is value for an organization? What is value? And when I gave you the example of the insurance claims, hey, what is value when I talk to the head of claims of an insurance company? What is value, let's say, when I talk to the head of digital digital channel for a banker, right? Does he look at scale? Does he look at active usage, or does he look at engagement, right? If it is engagement, does he look at NPS, or does he look at customer satisfaction index? Because they're completely two different things. So what is it for them? So when I talk to an energy utilities organization, hey, what is the head for the sourcing and procurement over there? What is the what is the value for that person? So I started understanding those things, and then we created some kind of organizational value tree. We did it across different verticals. We did it for, let's say, a vertical. We created business functions, and by business function, then we created primary, secondary, and tertiary value trees. And then we evangelize those internally. We evangelize that with our associates. We evangelize that with our architects, engineers, even delivery folks. Because why? Again, I want to repeat, maybe for the fourth or fifth time, delivery is the currency of sales.
Right.
And obviously, delivery is also the biggest engine that we have, right? It's not the sales guys who are the biggest engine. It's the delivery who is the biggest engine. The sales guys get the delivery practitioners, the champions on the calls, and they say, hey, this is the proof of the pudding. So, we evangelize it internally. It was almost like an 18-month kind of, organizational cultural change that we went through. We did it across different geographies. Certain geographies were quick to pick it up. And these were the geographies that were lagging in revenue, smaller geographies. They were very nimble. They said, yes, this is fantastic. We were quick to pick it up. They showed an improvement. And then that gave the bigger behemoths of the geographies to say, hey, if these guys can do it, we can also do it, because we have just bigger accounts. We have larger accounts. We have just much more to lose if we don't do that, rather than, anything else. So yes, it was not short. It was very challenging. And it was all people driven, because when you need to change mindsets, when you need to have an organizational cultural change, it takes time, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of patience. Typically I use one word, is a woodpecker theory. You just need to be a woodpecker. If you believe in something and you believe it wholeheartedly, keep pecking away like the woodpecker. Somewhere, you will not know where that tree will break, There will be a
Right,
hole,
right,
and suddenly, there is a house to live in over there.
Yeah, no, that's a great analogy. No, that's great. I think this is a really interesting topic, and you did a great job of breaking that down for us, very counterintuitively for sure. So let's transition to the second revenue rule. Why don't you go ahead and give that to us?
Yeah. The second revenue rule is account planning is the greatest hygiene in life, right? Let me unpack that a little bit. Um, you know, a lot of us have a lot of go-to-market plans. You could do it by geography, you could do it by hyperscaler, you could do it by alliance, you could skin it a lot different ways. But at the end of the day, the revenue comes from the client, the customer. And going back to the first revenue rule, value for the client will give us revenue.
Right.
So the way you plan your accounts, the way you identify which accounts you will proactively not touch and you will proactively go for, completely defines your year, your financial year. And I firmly believe in that.
Well, you're right. Most of our, it's always easier to grow an existing client than it is to land a new one. And usually the new logos aren't like it's a foot in the door, right? So that may be your big account in 2 to 3 years to come, but expanding an existing account is because you know the value, you have relationships, but you just now need to kind of unpack that. So tell me about how you do account planning. What does that mean for you?
Number one, to start with, is to group the accounts into certain buckets. So you have the large accounts. These are your lighthouse accounts, the diamonds in your pack, right? This is where you build a moat around.
Right.
Yeah, very simple. And we'll come back to that later. The next bucket is your growth accounts. These are accounts you've acquired as new logos, and you're looking to expand your wallet share in these accounts. So you are the new blue-eyed boy for the client. Hey, yes, we love to work with you. You're our new partner. You've already delivered one great project. You want to land and expand with these clients. So second was the growth accounts. The third ones are the new logos. And I'm sure you look at this yourself, right? Your new logos. Which are the logos with high tech spend where you currently do not have a wallet share? Those are the ones you want to actively go after. What is your plan for that? And the last one is your tail accounts, logos where you will have no proactive engagement. It will all be reactive, right? So once you group into these accounts, you take the first two accounts where you want to grow, which is your large accounts and your growth accounts, and then you have a account-wise plan for expanding in there. With the large accounts, typically you know what their 5-year plan is. So let's say we are in 2024. So what is their 2026 or 2028 growth objectives, right? If you're talking to a car auto manufacturer, they could possibly have a connected car as one of their growth objectives. They could possibly have a transparent supply chain as one of their growth objectives. So they could have certain growth objectives. Now, how can you fit in data and AI within that growth objective? So what does data and AI mean for a connected car in the example that we are speaking about? And then that's where you start with value. And that's how then you plan for those kind of accounts. Because large accounts, you typically know you're working with them as a trusted partner. They share with you information about their growth objectives, so that you can then come back to them and say that, hey, this is our point of view on how you can achieve your strategic growth objectives, right? So that's your large account plan. When you talk about growth account, this is where you have vague kind of knowledge. You will have knowledge in bits and spurts. You might have better knowledge, let's say, from the finance department. You may have zero knowledge from the marketing department. You may have very little knowledge from the customer care kind of department, right? So how do you make things work within your growth accounts? Is you look for champions. Obviously, you look for champions. You look for business heads And when you look at business function heads, yeah, that's where then you approach them with some value propositions, right? Say, hey, with your company, what we see, in the market is, it's facing X amount of things, which is why, for you, if we can improve, let's say, your unbilled percentage, and that itself is a 6% markup on the revenue that you're getting. So, you go with them with value propositions, and then there is a whole lot of marketing and evangelization that needs to be done over a period of time, right? Whether it's thought leadership, white papers, calling them for events, partner-led events, or even bespoke events for, bespoke curated event. So there's a lot of those things that can be done for those kind of accounts. So yeah, so different, different kind of ways that you can tackle for large accounts and for growth accounts.
No, that's great. Now I'm thinking about what I need to be doing right now around my own account plans. I think it's very clear. And so when you think about, so now if we zero in on your growth accounts or your diamond accounts, those top, I forget what you call them, but like the ones that, you build the moat around, right? So once you're in there, do you as a team sit down and talk about, okay, where do we have relationships? Where are we going? Where is their 2025 plan? Tell me a little bit about how you tactically go from to create the actual plan. Is it a document? How do you guys co-create that? Do you sometimes co-create that with the client in some cases where, they're like, hey, we want you to grow with us. We want you to help us grow. Let's work together. So I'm curious, like now, how do you go from, okay, we got our accounts bifurcated. We now want to take that one client and go deep and create the plan for that one client. What does that process and document or deliverable look like?
Yeah. So essentially at the end of the day, the deliverable or the document is a PPT, right? In the way where you have an executive summary of the growth objectives, then those growth objectives, and then you have a summary of your account mapping in place. Who are your stakeholders? We know, we don't know. Oftentimes what happens is in large accounts, we've been working with them for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, in some cases even 20 years, right? We've lasted longer than the stakeholders themselves on the client side. So there's a lot of knowledge that we have that the current stakeholder may not have. They may be 1 year into their role. They may be 2 years into their role, but we have a 5-year view into it. Let's say they're going on a cost-cutting exercise. They've never been in a cost-cutting exercise in their role, right? But we've seen 2 cost-cutting exercises in that same organization. We know how it pans out. We know the decisions get taken. So we look at the strategic objectives. We see, what the client is going to be doing next year. We pretty much know that, right, from our experience. And then we know where the stakeholder mapping is. To the stakeholders already mapped out and where we are already trusted partners, we go them and actually strategically talk about, the situations they will face and what has happened in the past, to give them enough information on the table so that they are they're able to take decisions.
Yeah.
Now, for stakeholders that we are not trusted partners, we have no relationship with, that is where we go and start building relationships, right? So there's a complete mapping to say with where to enhance relationships, where to build relationships, and then you get to the point of propositions. You connect that with the strategic objectives so that their business justification becomes that much easier. When I talk to a client and I say, this is the reason, this is I'm proposing A because it ties into your strategic objective, and then you can show B as your return of investment, that the way they listen to you is completely different, right? So essentially it is bottoms up as well as a top down kind of approach, number one. Number two, the output is a PPT. Number three is we don't do this in isolation at all. There is one that we do from a data and AI perspective, Then we go to the vertical itself. The vertical is obviously the larger structure where different service lines are there. Data and AI would be just one service line. We go to the vertical and speak to them about what they are planning for that account, right? And then we present our plans. Those plans are interlocked, and then we go to the customer and we go to the stakeholders where we are trusted partners first, right? And we start from there, and we go as one single, company. So it's not just data and AI going in silo, a different service line going in silo, the vertical speaking in silo, and the customer is saying, hey, you know what? Why three different people telling me three different things? So we go as one company telling one kind of story, right? So
Yeah,
that's potentially the way we look at things.
and that's great. And so when you go and take this to your, I've seen this with other clients of ours and knowing how they do account planning with their clients. So they do share some of that plan with their clients. So I'm kind of curious, like, what are you looking for when you take your account plan to your key stakeholders and say, hey, here's how we're thinking about how we can grow our business with you. Here's the value opportunities that we see. Like, what are you trying to get? Obviously, you're getting some coaching, right? Like, or maybe it could be, I'm willing to introduce you to over here or over there. What are you trying to achieve in that discussion when you present your account plan to your client stakeholder?
Yeah, to put it very simply, what we're trying to achieve is there is a budget that our client stakeholder will have, and we want to align a series of initiatives against that budget. That's our end goal. Very simple. There is a yearly budget that they have, and that's what they will spend, right? What we are trying to do is to get a wallet share out of that. If our wallet share is 80% with our client, we're trying to move it up, move the dial up. Obviously, we can't jump 20% when you already have an 80% wallet share. If we are at a 40% wallet share, then we try to move the needle higher. So that's the bottom line of what we're trying to do. And the way we do that is through the series of initiatives that we're trying to plan for them, right? To say that, hey, this is the portfolio of things you could potentially do, and it's tied back to your strategic growth objectives as an organization.
Right. Now, are you doing that on a function by function basis? So obviously you may have a small wallet share in, let's say, IT, but your wallet share in data and AI may be larger, right? So, how are you kind of dealing that? Because you have different stakeholders, right? And where the budgets come from and buying, et cetera. So are you doing that on a stakeholder by stakeholder basis? Or are you doing this with maybe your overall account sponsor at, that insurance company example you talked about before?
Yeah, so I would look at it from my perspective. I would look at the data and AI spend of the company and then look at my wallet share from that perspective. So my complete account planning will be from that area. So I could be big for the vertical, for my vertical, me as a service line could be very big over there. And you could have other service lines which are small. Or it could be the other way around. But I completely look at, let's say, even, and this is true not only for farming accounts, this is even true for new logos. So we know that there are certain logos who spend, let's say, 1.2 billion on data and AI, and my wallet share there is 2%. What do I do over there? So that's my starting point straight away. Right? And we get this information. This information is not, publicly available, but this information is available through certain organizations. You can very well get this information through certain sources, right? And that's how we do it for our large accounts. I look at it from a data and AI perspective, pure and simple for me.
Yeah, makes sense. No, that's a great deep dive into account planning, because a lot of, like you said, it's critical, right, in order to grow, but there are better ways to do it than other ways, right? So this was a really good view into your process, that you've used for years now. And it takes discipline, right? Like, that'll be my last question. So how much of this is like company mandated to say, hey, gosh, it's the account planning season, right? We got to do this across all of our accounts, right? Versus something that you and teams may or more naturally or organically do, right? So just from the company standpoint, how is this driven versus organically done by, practice leaders?
Yeah. So again, even if you look at fairy tales or anything like that, they say culture is always top driven from top down, right? How the king is, his subjects will be like that. How the CEO is, the company's flair will be like that, right? That's what they generically say. For me, this has been part of my ethos, and I've always driven that. Luckily for me, in the organizations that I work for, account planning has been given a important gravitas that I would have expected it. I've never seen it taken lightly. In some cases, I used to focus on it more, and others less so. But irrespective, I have always driven account planning. And one thing I want to talk about, we've only spoken about accounts and how to plan for that, but there is a lot of different things, the nuggets that go into that, right? What's Do we have are we aligning the right service offering for those accounts? Are we leveraging the right client relationships? Are we talking about thought leadership with them? Are we building brand awareness with them? Hey, how are we connected with them geographically? They are there in 25 countries. How are we connected with them across geographies? Do we only have a relationship with them in, let's say, I'm just throwing this up, in the Netherlands and not somewhere else, right?
Right.
Hey, how much do we need to hire for that client to expand our team, to deepen our relationship? Hey, for our existing folks, what is the investment in training and development? And at the end of this, you create a plan, you create all of these nuggets that I mentioned. What is the cadence that goes into all of this? So the gravitas for all of this is, again, like I said, culture, very important. And once you build that down, then everybody knows how they're going. Everybody knows what lens they're going to be evaluated with. And once
Right.
they know with what lens they're going to be evaluated with, everyone then flows into that same structure. Something I would use the word swarm intelligence, right? So once know how it works, then the swarm just moves in one direction as if it's one big large organization, and that's the sweet spot to get for teams.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, so tell us a little bit of how you got into consulting and professional services, and specifically, usually that means you start as a delivery person and somehow you've turned into a growth leader. So I'm tell me a little bit about that whole transition, because usually that's not easy for a lot of delivery people that come up through the ranks and being asked to sell.
So, okay, so let me unpack that a little bit more uh, from my role perspective and how I get there. So I have completed the circuit. Now, what do I mean when I say I've completed the circuit? So I've worked across diverse roles. You mentioned sales and delivery, but I've also worked in pre-sales. I've also worked in solutioning. I've also worked in customer success. Although sales has by far been the majority of my tenure. Now, why am I telling you this, and why is this important? Because with this, I have a deep understanding of the different aspects of an organization and the challenges that these different roles face. Now, this understanding then allows me to appreciate their work and to collaborate effectively. And the way I have now seen myself through these roles and the client, hey, as a customer success leader, how do I see the client? As a solutioning leader, how do I see the client? As a growth leader, sales growth leader, how do I see the client? As a delivery leader, how do I see the client? Now, all of that becomes critical for success. And that has shaped me both personally. And, I believe being a collaborative leader is, crucial for success, both personally as well as, for the organizations that I work for. So that's, how I've come about to be this, consultative led, seller.
No, that's great. Where can we follow you online?
I think LinkedIn is the best place to follow me online. I'm pretty much active there. Yeah, whatever I learn, I try and share, because it's all about sharing.
I shared this with you before we started that you do. I've really enjoyed your podcast or your LinkedIn content. It's consistent and it's really good. So I would encourage the audience to connect with Aakash on LinkedIn and follow specifically about a lot of the AI stuff. I think it's really interesting. So great conversation, Aakash. I'm so glad we have the opportunity to do this. I've got some work to do on my account plans and a few other things coming out of our conversation today. So really appreciate it. Thank you for taking some time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to The Revenue Hustle. This episode has been brought to you by 9 Lenses. Close more deals with interactive assessments. Check them out at 9lenses.com. See you next time.